Now, an insight into the man threatening to unleash nuclear war. As a child, Vladimir Putin used to chase rats around his dirty apartment block. He admits he cornered one once and it turned on him in a vicious attack. Experts say the Russian president himself is now that rat, and he's more dangerous than ever.
A swift and brutal Russian retaliation. For another humiliation. On Vladimir Putin's 70th birthday, the landmark bridge linking Russia to Crimea bombed as the pressure intensifies for the Russian strongman.
Putin has a reason to be very afraid right now.
Mr. Putin behaves increasingly irrationally.
Simple truth is that Vladimir Putin is losing this war.
There haven't been too many happy returns for the Russian president.
So the question is, won't he nuke Ukraine?
He's essentially in a corner, and that's what makes the situation really dangerous.
233 days since Putin ordered his troops to invade Ukraine, the war is swinging very much in favour of the invaded.
This winter will be tough for both sides, but the odds are with Ukraine. The momentum is with Ukraine.
John Sweeney, veteran war correspondent, is back in Ukraine. He's confident the collapse of the Putin regime is fast approaching.
The Ukrainian army is going to win, and sooner or later, Vladimir Putin is going to get toppled. I'm an optimist.
Yevgenia Marakurtsa knows all about opposing Putin. Her husband Vladimir, a pro-democracy politician, sits in a Russian jail.
Twice already, this regime targeted my husband. There were 2 assassination attacks against Vladimir in 2015 and 2017. He was poisoned, ended up in a coma with a multiple organ failure both times. So the fact that they imprisoned my husband came as no surprise, unfortunately.
Yevgenia heads the Free Russia Foundation, started by her husband.
So my husband is one of the thousands arrested for speaking out against the war, against mobilization, against Vladimir Putin in Russia. People get arrested for holding a blank sheet of paper in the street. Several people got arrested for, as the official police report said, staging a rally with invisible anti-government signs. Invisible.
But the tide, she says, is turning.
We've seen protests flaring up here and there across the country in response to mobilization. And I think that these protests might actually grow.
The Putin regime relied on a kind of social contract, which was that Russians surrendered basic political freedoms, and in return there would be security, stability and prosperity.
Dr. Robert Horvath is an expert in Russian politics at Melbourne's La Trobe University.
Once the regime is recruiting unwilling husbands, fathers, brothers to go and die in an unpopular war, that social contract has been violated and the regime's survival is in question.
The mobilisation of civilians to the front could be Putin's greatest mistake.
I understand why many people have been scared into silence. But of course, it does not mean that they support the war. It does not mean that they want to go to war and die there.
And if you're worried about the nuclear option,
Big nuclear war is off the table, full stop. But it feels to me as though the nuclear threat is just that, a threat, not a reality. If he does seek to press the nuclear button, he'll find the wiring for the button is not connected. to the nukes. I do not think the birds will fly. He could use tactical nuclear weapons, but again, that is crossing the Rubicon in a very, very serious way.
He hasn't crossed that line yet, but Ukraine is resisting every attack by conventional means.
Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
So how and when does this end?
It's inevitable that the blame game is going to unfold during the coming weeks, and that will be destabilising.
Но неужели кто-то всерьез верит, что
6 months ago, did anyone really believe we would be surrendering towns and trying to repel a counter-offensive in Kharkiv?
The fastest way to a time when we can all sleep more comfortably in our beds and get on with our normal democratic lives is when Vladimir Putin is in a box. One of those people, a Russian general, an oligarch, a doctor. If he takes surgery, does he wake up again? If he drinks a cup of tea, is a cup of tea just tea, or has somebody added poison?
There is, I think, a long-term prospect of a transition to democracy precisely because of Putin's legacy. Putin's only achievement really is to show Russians that dictatorship is a road to disaster.
There are millions of Russians who want the same thing I want. We just want to live in a boring democratic country where the parliament will be discussing budget matters, not nuclear attack on our closest neighbor.
The sad reality is the threat from Vladimir Putin is real. He's moved 11 nuclear-capable bombers to bases not far from Finland and Norway as NATO plans to go ahead with major war games getting underway on Monday.